Chapter 2 specific HCI guidelines. So in this chapter, we'll be discussing guideline categories and then some examples of HCI guidelines. So we have, I think, nine specific HCI guidelines. So first, we have visual display layout. Second, information structuring and navigation. Then taking user input, users with disability, mobile device, icons for Apple iOS, and fonts for Windows XP. Then we have aircon designed for oral interface. Then cell phones for making calls in automobiles. Then last is the e-commerce. So these are the topics that we're going to discuss in this chapter. Okay, guidelines categories. So while principles are very general and applicable to wide areas aspects of human-computer interaction design, guidelines tend to be more specific. So we have already studied the principles of HCI, and it said that it's more general. So compared to the guidelines, it is more specific. So um, we might for instance, no, like in the criteria of user type. So there could be further specific guidelines for specific uh, like age groups, gender, or sa pa, occupation nila, culture. So that could be sample of specific guidelines. Then here there are two categories of guidelines. So can divide it into two. We have domain specific, for example, specific to user or platform or etc. And the general HCI design. So ato na magian later. So note that kaning mga guidelines can be relevant and common across the different categories. Okay. Alright, so we have examples of criteria categories for HCI guidelines. So we have here a table. It shows major criteria and areas for which specific guidelines can be of help in HCI design. So kanina table, um, it so each guideline done in a table illustrates specific UI or user interface examples with exact description of what it is, kung unsay ang imo, kung what it does, and why and when it should be used. So such kanina na design patterns are of great help during actual na HCI design. So as you can see here from the first column, we have the criteria and the main categories is the next, and we have some specific examples. So for first criteria, we have user type. So yung mga main categories, we have age or generation, disability, with then gender, occupation, culture. So for specific example niya, for age, we have kids or generation kids, elders. Then for disability, we have visually challenged, mga baby boomers. And for consumer group, no, we have students, parents, and so on. Then we have also here the for criteria for platform or systems setup for na yung main categories here: mobile, handheld, desktop, large display, virtual reality, embedded public installation, and so on. And for example, for mobile or handheld, we have smartphone, padlock device. For desktop, and desktop kiosk, mga inana, large display kiosk, embedded OS. Mana sila yung mga specific example for this criteria or main categories. Then we have also criteria for vendors or organization. So we have for categories, we have private, public, design, style, style or identity. We have, for example, from private, we have NASA, Macquarie University, and for identity or design, we have Android, iOS, Windows XP. Then for criteria for interface style, modality or technology, we have yung main categories niya is we have WIMP. The WIMP stands for Windows icon, mouse, and pointer. Windows icon, mouse, and pointer. So we have some examples with voice or oral, gesture, single, multi-touch, tactile, and so on. Then we have criteria for task or operational context. For main categories, we have location or place, time, noise, lighting, bodily constraints. And then for examples, we have for location, we have office, outdoor, road or street, home, automobile, subway, and so on. And for criteria for applications, we have categories for game, media, information, e-commerce, design, editing, social network, services. Then we have last is the criteria for general HCI design. Then we have the main categories. We have display layout, information structure, navigation, soliciting input, information, output, visualization, design process, practice, user experience, general aesthetics, wrong spelling sa piece, and with structure. Okay, okay, those were the example no, of criteria or categories for HCI guidelines. So, I think we will dig deeper in the later chapter kanin sila mga examples of criteria categories for HCI designs. So, we have here some first example of HCI guideline. So first is the visual display layout. So the main focus in many guidelines is on the display page layout. So it organizes and allots relevant information in one visible screen or scrollable page. So the display layout should be such that it is organized according to the information content. The size is manageable, is attention grabbing, and visually pleasing. So here, isa ka layout nimo sa imong HCI is it contains relevant information in which it is visible or scrollable in a page. So when you say information organized according to the information content, so meaning those important o mga important lang mga significant mga information or imong mga sequence sa imong information should be organized, and then mga functionality niya. Then when I say the size is manageable, it is naka-divide into proper sections. So naka-sectioning imong mga layout. Okay, kani siya na section para dana ana. So organize the Japan siya, then attention grabbing. So naka-caught of attention and is visually pleasing. So meaning when I say visually pleasing, aligned and with restricted use of colors. So dapat nasa mga balo mo or have some idea kung sa itsada ng mga color combination or what. Say na basta visually pleasing. So nasa ang guidelines sa visual display layout. So we have also here example guidelines for government web page layout. So when you say web page class, it's isa lang ka page, not just a website. So when you say the difference between website and web page is that a website is composed of web pages, So, ang web page is an part lang siya sa website. So, take for example, um, let's say, here, Facebook. Kaning isa ka Facebook man siya, isa website. So, isa ka page layout mo na siya, then another page layout, kaning nasa imong timelines ba ni siya, ano ni siya, isa ka link, another page layout na siya, hina-internet. So, katong uban, another page layout, I mean, web page. So, ang isa ka Facebook is website, then ang website is composed of many web pages. Mga siyang kalainan sa web page and website. Okay, so we have here guidelines. Sample guidelines for government web pages. So, according here, avoid cluttered displays. So, create pages that are not considered cluttered by users, meaning cluttered, i-avoid mo mga crowded information or mga untidy. Anong crowded na kayo mong kuwan ba? Imong site, imong layout sa mga information. So you have to avoid that. Then next is place important items consistently. So put important or clickable items in the same locations and closer to the top of the page where their location can be better estimated. So place the mga important items na mga clickable items in the same location. The same with this third, place important items at the top center. So put the most important items at the top center of the web page to facilitate user finding information. Okay, so mga important items happen at the top of center para ma-facilitate sa user to how to find the information. Next is structure for easy comparison. So structure pages so that items can be easily compared when users must analyze those items to discern similarities, differences, trends, and relationships. So you have to structure your page for easy comparison. So next, establish level of importance. So establish a high to low level of importance for information and infuse this approach throughout each page on the website. Okay, you have to know your level of importance from high to low. So, muna imong isulod nimo sa imong website. And then you have to optimize display density. To facilitate finding target information on a page, create pages that are not too crowded with items of information. So, mo to siya, say mo sa kuan, it should not be cluttered or untidy or daghan na kasi information. Mabombarded na kuan ba information sa isa na ka page. So, you have to organize it. The next is align items on a page. So, visually align page elements either vertically or horizontally. So, you have to decide before you ka magkuan sa imong page layout mo, have to align on sa imong pamutang daniel page. You have to align your page elements. Then set appropriate page lengths. So make page length decisions that support the primary use of the page. So mag-set ka ng page length. Then next is choose appropriate line lengths. So if reading speed is most important, use longer line lengths. So 75 to 100 characters per line. If acceptance of the website is most important, use shorter line lengths. So depending on the same. So use frames when functions must remain accessible. So use frames when certain functions must remain visible on the screen as the user accesses other information in the site. So makabantay mo ng mga frames, no? Naka-frame siya. Total like na bitang naka-frame. So naiuban, for example, kani siya frame nimo ng website. Kani siya dani na part. Pwede na ni siya ma-set na naka-steady or parang dana rin siya. Pwede po nimo dani na part na frame, pwede nimo siya scroll, ma-scroll nimo siya mga frame sa imong website. So I think that's the last guideline for government web page layout. So nyo lang tong i-go over. So in the future, kung you'll be doing some layouting of your web page. Okay. Then before proceeding to second guideline, no? So I have some na ko ipakita dani na. So, okay. So here plus you have to kuan ninyo kung good or bad ni siya na design interface, user interface design. So for this website, so Nicole, so unsa kayong na-observe ani na website? Would this be bad or a good design? So this would be a bad design. Why? Because as you can see, no, it is a lack of contrast. So this can kung dapat imong website has a clear and fresh contrast sa mga colors. So this can help us better read and understand the info there. So as you can see, nang maglisod jud imong hanap kayo ang mga letters. So you have to dapat mo better mabasahan jud og kay mabasahan jud imong mga info diya sa imong website. So if there's no contrast included, both of the color combination, no, and overall display of the website will make us overwhelmed. So overwhelmed sa website. So it's pretty difficult to read the content from the website. So mao na yung bantayan the contrast. This website is lack of contrast. So this is bad. Yeah. So what about this? Next, so Mad Men. What do you think? So this is a good design. Contrast, yung contrast sa color. So klaro kanimo mabasahan jud Mad Men. So nag-contrast with the black and red color. So this is a good design. Okay. Next is, so what about this website? What do you think? So this website is a bad design. So it's not responsive, meaning say responsive design. Dili man siya maka when you say dili siya responsive, it cannot adapt to given resolution and device size. It's a must, especially for shopping cart website apps, no, whose target audiences are coming from the mobile. So dapat kung kanina website pwede siya sa computer, sa desktop, it should be also good sa mobile application kaya sa mga shopping carts o magkuhan kag mga app, mag-buy kag online. So napaidagan na sa mobile. So dapat mo adjust pud siya iyang resolution. So mao na ang responsive design. So this one is a bad website. So kani siya. So klaro kayo no? Good dyan ni siya kay of course pwede siya sa adjust yung resolution any kuan device mo magamit either desktop, sa laptop, or cell phone or the tablet. So this is a good design. So what about this one? So this one is not, this is a bad design since inconsistent in page design. So it doesn't mean the mashup style is not good, no? Now dili siya lalahi ang design. Then because an excellent design should be consistent on the style in order to make users clearly understand and respond to the given content. So this will also do good to improve the work efficiently. So dapat consistent imong design. So pagkuan niya dani sulahin na pud malibog jud ang user makakuan sa lahi na pud na website atong nakuanan. So it should be, the design should be consistent. So like this one. So kung naimang kuanda ni nani mong structure sa mong layout sa mong page, so it should be consistent, diba? Consistent yung design. So every web page nimo sa imong website should be consistent ang design. So this is the example of good design page consistency. So this one is an example of not clunky and sluggish form. So we need to collect the user related information, so by designing a better form. So kung sluggish and clunky imong form, so it's a totally a waste of time. So it's better to streamline the involved steps to make the form look concise and clear. So this is one example of not a clunky and sluggish form. So sakto kay imong mga, this is a good user sign up form. So these are some example na mga inyong mga tips lang for future ninyo na project baka or imoon. So let's go to the next. For second example of HCI guidelines, so we have information structuring and navigation. So a single display is often not sufficient to encompass all other required information content or control the UI for a given application. So thus, structuring the information and making it easy to move among the various items becomes a very important issue for high usability. So then structuring information, content, and controlling the interface for the purpose of HCI is closely related din siya sa principles of understanding. Second principle, which is understanding the task. So related na sila, closely related sila na guideline. So by understanding the task, we identify the sequence kung unsa na mga subtasks and actions. And each task will be associated with information either for making input or for the resulting output. So ang task structure of action sequence and associated content organization will dictate the interaction flow and its fluidity. So kung naka-structure imong app or design, then ang mga action sequence niya ay ang action naka-sequence and associated content naka-organize. So mas ang interaction sa kuan is fluid. So ang interaction sa user sa imong sa imong interface. So in this way, the right amount of information or control will be available at the right time. So aside from such internal structure, no, it is also important to provide external means aside from such internal structure and the right UI for fast and easy navigation. Fast and easy navigation means enabling the user to find the needed action and information quickly. So when we say navigation, it refers to the method used to find information within a website. So a navigation page is used primarily to help users locate and link to destination pages. So a website's navigation scheme and features should allow users to find and access information effectively and efficiently. So we have here, kung makuha ninyo, so, example, so kanina site, so para saan po pag-navigate sa mga information, so you use gina-structure nimo siya sa dapit, no? Like kanina nagimo ka mga menus, then i-group nimo ang mga information like kani home, sa economy, para ma-easy to help this user to locate, no, and link to the destination pages. So mo na siya ang navigation. And then we have here, no, to facilitate navigation, designers should differentiate and group navigation elements and use appropriate menu types. So, mo to siya ganiya. So, naka-grouping ang imong mga elements or imong mga information into appropriate menu types. So, it is also used descriptive tab, labels, naka-tab siya, naka-labels. So, kato, provide clickable list of page contents on long pages and add glosses where they will help users select the correct link. So if we go back to the example, so we have here, no, the designer though should the navigation elements should appropriate menus. So appropriate menus, naka-menus siya, no, kung naka-group ang mga elements. So events, concert, contest, so entertainment, film, gana. And then it use descriptive tab labels. So naka-descriptive tab siya. Ano siya mga description. And then provide clickable list of page content. So maklik na ninyo siya. So mauna siya ang that's how the guidelines of information, it's how we structure information and navigate your your interface, user interface. Okay, for the third example, so taking user input. So we're talking here some data entry na input sa isa ka user. Alright, so clever designs for taking user input can improve the overall performance. So in terms of both time and accuracy for highly interactive systems. So modern interfaces employ graphical user interface or GUI elements, support techniques and devices to obtain user input in different ways. So kanina guideline is used for taking inputs pag nagkwanta, mag-grab tag mga how the interface kuan sa mga input sa user. So GUI elements, no? For example, window. If you're familiar, I think nakikita mo yung mga text box, mga button, menu, forms. So kuan na siya, ma-employ na siya dito sa GUI mo na gamit na mga dialog box and icon. So when say support system, support technique rather, atong mga auto-completion, deactivating relevant options, mga voice recognition, so mga voicings, so like mga devices to kanang mouse, touch screen, like magdula mo sa app ninyo sa inyong mobile. So every time mag-touch mo uh, consider na siya as input, user input. So mo na siya example sa mga taking user input. Okay, we have here a collection of guidelines for use in applying input methods to facilitate data entry. So one here is consistency of data entry transactions. So similar sequences of actions should be used until all conditions. So similar delimiters, abbreviation. So there should be a consistent data entry in every transaction. So then we have minimal input actions by user. So fewer input actions means greater operator productivity. So make proper use of single key commands, mouse selection, auto-completion, features, and automatic cursor placement rather than typing pressing in a full alphanumeric input. So gamit tag mga single key commands, mga mga alphanumeric, mga para gamay lang ang mga input. Then we have minimal memory load on users. So when doing data entry, use menus and button choices so that users do not have to remember a lengthy list of codes and complex syntactic command strings. So na siya. So you have to use menus and buttons para di na ang user di na dagan kay remember pa, so it takes time on sa pato. So you have to provide menus, mga choices niya. Next is compatibility of data entry with data display. So the format of data entry information should be linked closely to the format of display information. So there should be a compatible data sa data display nimo. Then we have clear and effective labeling of buttons. Labeling of buttons, and so use consistent labeling, distinguish between required and optional data entry. So place labels close to the data entry. Kung aton ni siyang ikuan. Plus ani, no? Kana siya na example form. Yeah, this form, no? Sa PRC man siya. So let's take as an example. So dani minimal yung kuan. So nagamit siya mga menus, drop down menus. So nakabutang na diya dani ang sa tawag dapat compatible ang mga data dana. Then dapat kong isa clear and effective labeling of buttons. Naka-label ang mga buttons sa mga buttons buttons. Clear ang pagkakuan. Na-register button siya. Labeling data entry fields, mga fields. So na last name ra wala sa tao, sa user. Ang mga labeling nila, label, clear. Then ano pa to? Match and place the sequence of data entry and selection fields in natural scanning and hand movement. So nakamatch ang iyang mga data entry. Next is do not place semantically opposing entry selection options close together. Such a placement is likely to produce frequent erroneous input. So for example, do not place a save and undo. So dili na siya mga opposing entry. Suppose na save undo lugar, so you have to use kanang dili symmetrical na or opposing na mga entry or options. Then next is design a form and dialog boxes. So most visual display layout guidelines also apply to the design of form and dialog box. So ano siya? So mo ni siya ato siya atong mga guideline i-review lang ninyo. So itong post mo lang siya other than yung button na submit. So dili ka magkuan register, magimo na pud ka danig kuan lahi na button, pero kuan ka ng pareha ra siya register or save. So di ka magamit ana or register or pwede na po clear or clear name mo at kung nanabitaw or ina na submit lang submit. So this is an example now sa taking input user input rather na guideline. So note that most of these guidelines apply only when using mouse or keyboard. Mga applicable na sa mga sa mga mouse o keyboard driven na GUI elements. So situation more complicated siya when other forms of input are also used, such as touch, and mga touch, gesture, 3D-dimensional 3D selection, and mga voice recognition. So mas complicated yun na siya. So basin sa inyo na ay maka-invent na mga input, so maka-enhance pa, so along the way maka-invent din ng mga application or ma-enhance din mga isang application through this mga complicated na mga inputs, so this separate guidelines for incorporating such input modalities. So ito na siya sa later chapter na siya mga katong mga input modalities, itong mga complicated na mga user input. So that's for third guideline, taking user input. Okay, for fourth, fourth guideline, we have users with disability. So this is intended for users, disabled na users. So here it explains how to make web content more accessible to people with disabilities. So web content generally refers to the information in a web page or web application, including text, images, forms, sounds, and etc. So this guideline is intended for people or users with disability. So we have here the some following guideline, summary following guideline. So it should be perceivable. So meaning perceive, perceive like maramdaman ba, ma-feel nimo ang ano siya. Then so perceivable, it should be provide text alternatives for non-text content. So meaning katong mga non-text content like images, ano sa pa, uh, like images, mga labels, it should be provided with text alternatives. And then provide captions and other alternatives for multimedia. So naka mga captions for multimedia. Then create content that can be presented in different ways, including by assistive technologies without losing meaning. So present in different ways, no, by i-include sa mga examples sa mga assistive technologies like mga text to speech, no, reading pens, voice recognition, mga digital recorders, mga sila. Then make it easier for users to see and hear content. So ano siya ang under sa perceivable. Then we have also, it should be operable. So operate siya. So make all functionality available from a keyboard. So give users enough time to read and use content. Then do not use content that causes seizures. And last, help users navigate and find content. So it should be dapat imo ni silang i-consider ng mga to make it operable ang imong interface for intended for disabled persons or users. Then we have third is understandable. So make text readable and understandable. Then make content appear and operate in predictable ways. Then help users avoid and correct mistakes. So it should be dapat masabtan dyan siya sa mga disabled person or users. Then last is the robust, meaning strong or strong imong powerful ba imong interface. So maximize compatibility with current and future user tools. So yeah, so mo tong mga guideline, no, for making interface with disabled users. So this here we have an example, no? It's adjustment feature for visually challenged users. So mga visually challenged users, so the color of the background and the foreground text can be changed. So nasa ilang sa ilang web page, no, kung ikuan mo ni siya, i-click or mo kuan siya, mo set siya, mo change siya sa yung background and foreground for those who are visually challenged users. Okay, so that's it for the fifth guideline. We have mobile device. So with the spread of smartphones, usability and user experience of mobile devices and applications has become even more important. So many conventional principles equally apply to mobile network devices. So kani siya, no, platform type for mobile devices. Muna siya na guideline. So we have here some specific and important guideline for mobile device. So it should be fast status information. So with regard to network connection and services, dapat fast niyang kuan og mga status sa iyang connection services. So minimize typing and leverage on varied input hardware. Then fierce task focus for less confusion in a highly dense information space. So dapat um, less than confusion sa mga kanang dense na mga information. Then we have large hit targets, so for easy and correct selection and manipulation, then efficient use of screen space with condensed information. So to better understand that, we have here some examples. So as you can see here in the figure A, this figure, compare this is comparison of two mobile games interfaces. So we have in the A, it's a condensed young space. Object density is needlessly high and distracting. So distracting medyo kay siya kay too cluttered ang iyang space, no? So compared to this one, B, simple and minimal layout. Object sizes fitted to ergonomic usage. So naka-arrange ang mga icons, yung mga kuan. So dili kay siya mas compared sa Picas, mas dense, populated kay ang screen. Compared here, mas kuan siya, mas simple and minimal iyang mga object. So muna siya ang atong guideline for this mobile. Then we have also here similar set of guidelines available from Nokia developers. I think you're familiar with Nokia developers, no? Homepage nila, if you can visit. So their guideline is enable shortcuts. Example, mga hotkeys for frequently used functions. So natay mga na mga redial na mga kuan keys, no? Shortcut keys nimo na usually nimo ginagamit. Then keep the user informed of his or her actions. Then follow the device's vendor's interface patterns, positioning of the buttons and menus. So na sila standard. And mo to siya paligsa. So ang Nokia's developer homepage guidelines. Then next is another design pattern put forth by Google for the Android mobile interface concerns the limited and different sizes of a family of handheld devices, and more specifically suggests the use of panels as a way to achieve stability under such hardware constraints. So mani siya, no, ang sample sa Android design guideline promoting the use of list views and detailed views, multiple panels to efficiently use the screen size of a mobile devices. So as you can see in your mobile phone using those Android, naka-list, then use to view some pwede nyo siya ma-list, no? Naka-list para to view multiple panels. So, kung i-click na nimo siya, makuha siya sa isa ka contact. Kung gusto ka na makita tanan, i-list niya. So muna siya just make sure that your app, no, consistently provide a balanced and aesthetic pleasing layout by adjusting its content to varying screen sizes and orientation. So kuan jud siya, dapat consistent siya pod imong mga designs kung mo kuan siya, mo vary siya dito sa different sizes katong responsive bitaw na layout. So the same man Japon siya. So mo na siya ang for device guideline. Next is we have for the sixth guideline, we have icons for Apple iOS and fonts for Windows XP. So major vendors publish style guides for user interaction elements to be used for applications running on their platform. So for instance, rather, Apple has published a design guideline document so that details how application icons should be designed and styled. So naim ko ng Apple pod guideline. So one is try to balance eye appeal and clarity of meaning in your icons so that it is rich and beautiful and clearly conveys the essence of your app's purpose. Then investigate how your choice of image and color might be interpreted by people from different cultures. Then create different sizes of your app icon for different devices. For I think for iPhone and iPod Touch, both of these sizes are required. Um, for iOS code, it displays the app icon kung nakabantay mo. Ilang kuan jud ilang mga icon is na sila visual effects that like rounded corners, rounded yun. Mabantayan dyan ninyo na pang Apple siya kay rounded yung corners. Then we have drop shadow and reflective shine. Usually mo na siya kuan jud nimo ma-recognize jud nimo na iOS siya. Na Apple siya na product. So another guideline is the suggested choice of font sizes for Windows XP or applications based on it. So napod for Windows XP. So one is Franklin Gothic is used only for text over 14 point size. It is used for headers and should not be used for body text. Okay, mga ilang guideline Franklin Gothic imong gamiton na font style and 14 iyang sizes. For headers na siya, and dili siya pwede for body text. Then Tahoma is used as the system's default font. So yung default font is Tahoma. Tahoma should be used at -8, 9, or 11 point sizes. Then Verdana, bold 8 point. Yung default is used only for title bars or of tier or floating palettes. Then we have the Trebuchet MS bold 10 point is used only for the title bars of Windows XP. Try get na niyo sa search sa i-try niyo explore ang Windows XP ninyo. Tanan niyo dito sa yung mga title bars. Compare niyo sa ba. So those are for 6 icons, guidelines 6 icons for Apple iOS and fonts for Windows XP na guideline. We have aircon for 7 guideline. We have aircon designed for oral interface modality. So similar to visual icons, which capture the underlying meaning and draw attention for easy recognition, aircons should be designed to be intuitive. So kanina na siya guideline is intended for hearing disability. So here are 3 types of aircons, namely symbolic, nomic, and metaphoric. So when you say symbolic aircons, it rely on social convention, such as applause for approval. So na siya mga symbolic. So ayang gating na symbol is applause. So kung maka-hear sila applause, so meaning that's for approval. So we have also nomic ones are physical such as a door slam. So door slam. So that's an example of a pneumatic aircon. Then we have the third is the metaphorical ones, or based on capturing the similarities, such as a falling pitch for a falling object. So, uh, so oral feedback, including air cons, involves a careful choice of sound-related parameters such as the amplitude, loudness, frequency, pitch, tem timbre, timbre, and duration. So you have to consider these things because you are dealing with hearing disabilities. So, basin mga sobraan ang kagalaw, so it may affect mahapuan na nun siya, makasakit na nun siya no, sa hearing niya. So, you have to be careful of making some choices sa imong kuan pag ani na guideline. So anyway, we will not really take deeper on this modality, or in this oral modality, because it will be tackled on chapter 3. Okay, so let's proceed with the 8th guideline. We have the cell phones or making calls in automobiles or automobiles. So when you're in a car, so katong na yung mga car na ay mga okay na ay katong mga car na katong na ay mga car. So na ay you can have your cell phones on while making or you can do calls while driving, no? I think nanan natin sa car ay not all kung ano mga kuan dyan na cars. So sorry, it categorically outlined interface guidelines for automobiles and vehicles whose interfaces are nowadays mostly electronic and computer controlled. So the categories include design guidelines for manual control, spoken input and output, visual and auditory display, navigation guide, and cell phone consideration. So here are some guidelines for car phone interfaces in vehicles. So the basic is car phones should operate like phones people have at home. So the use of send to make a connection and power to turn a phone on and off are notable inconsistencies. So this is the basic guideline for mobile cell phones in automobiles. It should be the same when you are using your phone at home. Then you have also voice dialogue. Verbal commands and button labels should use the same terms. So commands of interest include dial, store, recall, and clear. This is an instance of the consistency principle. So voice dialogue mo siya, pwede po siya. While driving ka, you can voice over your or voice command your cell phones or that. Then we have also manual dialing. The store and recall buttons used for similar functions should be adjacent to each other. So this is an instance of grouping principle. So manual dialing. Okay. So this, I think this are the guidelines. So because you can see here, this is a phone interface for automobiles. Katong na yung mga cars, no? I think they are familiar mo ana. So take a look at that. If na mo'y time, no? Or you can or na mo'y kuan friend, kailan na cars na you can have pwede ninyo matry. So that's for cell phones, no? Cell phones are making calls in automobiles. Okay, we are now on the last guideline, which is the e-commerce application. So e-commerce, so it has collected and formulated very extensive, detailed, and structured HCI guidelines for e-commerce applications. So a total of 404 guidelines structured in four groups: general input or output forms, UI elements, and checkout process are given and applied to several real system for validation and evaluation. So if you're familiar with e-commerce, mga example na mga online selling, no? Mga website na kuan like I think fan mo sa mga Shopee, sa Lazada, Amazon, eBay. So, mo na sila mga example na mga e-commerce. So, next. So the following is a guideline under the checkout process section concerning the steps of a subtask, the checkout process. So checkout should start at the shopping cart, no? Kung mag-checkout na mo, it should be start with in the shopping cart. So if you're familiar with shopping cart, no? Checkout ang i-show sa na. So familiar mo sa Shopee, kana siya, shopping cart na siya, kung i-click na niyo, then Lazada. So manan lang mga example na e-commerce website sa na po yung mga Amazon or eBay. So asa po? Wala. So checkout should start at the shopping cart, followed by the gift options or shipping method. So the shipping address, the billing address, payment information, order review, and finally an order summary. So I think you're familiar if you've tried, no? You're a fan of online shopping. So familiar yun mo aning mga kuan shipping like shipping method and sa ba siya via Pandani LBC, JNT, or Zapaman. And the shipping address, of course, your address, the billing address, kung present ba or siya, permanent or na siya. Then payment information, o kung unsa ba, you can pay it through credit card or COD, no? Then order review, then it will mani mag-input ato mga order review na din kung i-review nimo imong order, and finally an order summary. Then the site displays a confirmation page and gives customers the option to register. The checkout process is linear then. Okay, so we have here an example status information shown in the process of a book purchase at Amazon.com. So if you can see it clearly, natatong gipang ingon na ano siya ang status na kanina naka-circle shown the process of book purchase. So mao ni siya example sa e-commerce on a checkout process. So I think that's all for this chapter. So we've studied the guidelines, guidelines for guidelines categories. Then we have some examples of HCI guidelines, specific guidelines. So to end this discussion, so just remember that most of the guidelines, it may specific or general, seems are easy to understand, no? But incorporating them in actual design and in pag-implement is, I think, siya very difficult. And many why? Because many guidelines are still quite at high level. So some developer are wondering how to actually apply them in practice. So another reason is that there are too many different aspects to consider. So sometimes the guidelines can even be in conflict with each other. So, um, but HCI guidelines still help greatly to ensure overall usability and performance. So in the next chapter, we will study cognitive and ergonomic knowledge more theoretically. Theory Japan ta. I hope you can still um, uh, have some interest, no? But wala man pud may choice. Anyway, along with the principles and guidelines we have learned so far, so we will apply that to HAI designs. So thank you for your cooperation.